Welcome to Tone Talks. Welcome to Tone Talks. Welcome to Tone Talks.
What up, y'all? This Tone Talks in the building here with a second show today. I did an earlier show with presidential candidate Marianne Williamson, largely talking about Black America and reparations in America at large. But today we got a second show. We got a heater, and I got a special guest. I'll tell you about him in a second. We're going to be talking Jussie Smollett. We're going to be talking Terry Crews. We're going to be talking about Black celebrity and the responsibility they have when making accusations. Let's have that discussion today. I look forward to everybody's tuning in. Please, wait till after the show to watch that Marianne Williamson interview. I know it just went live. It should be fire. I got Dr. Curry, Dr. Tommy Curry. Doctor, you there with me?
I am.
I look forward to having this discussion. Towards the end, we're going to bring in some callers so that we can get their opinions on everything. But right now, what we're going to be talking about is Jussie Smollett and everything that's going on with him, the supposed whole hoax of him having a noose and being beaten by MAGA hat wearers. And then what it came out as is him hiring Nigerians supposedly and wanting to further his career at the cost of Black people, of hate crimes, going uncalled, going basically being made out to be made fun of. You turn to Tucker Carlson and Hannity, and everybody's making fun of Black people yesterday. And I think that this is the irresponsibility around this whole thing. Again, the title of it is Jussie Smollett, Terry Crews, and the lies that cover real Black hate crimes. And Dr. Curry, you want to tell them a little about yourself?
Yeah. So, full professor of critical race theory and Black male studies. I've published several works in that area. Most of my research is dealing with the genocidal logics and anti-Blackness directed towards Black people. And I try to explore the realities of our death and dying.
Yeah, man. So we do this by questions. Let me just read out those questions so everybody has a framework for the discussion today. Number one, if proven, does the claim by Jussie Smollett he was a victim of a hate crime where he was beaten and left with a noose around his neck, does it left with a noose around his neck set back real racial violence claims? We have this whole thing where crying wolf comes about. What is the disrespect that he just paid to Eric Garner, to Alton Sterling, to Walter Scott, to people that would really died at the hands of violence, of racial violence. Number two, how does Jussie Smollett fit into the greater narrative of racial violence? Weave into, again, Alton Sterling, Eric Gardner, Walter Scott. How disrespectful are his actions to these and other men that have actually died at the hands of something like this? Number three, Jussie Smollett is half Jewish and also a celebrity. Everybody was saying that Chicago PD was targeting and this, that, and the other. I have to wonder, is Chicago PD or Baltimore PD or LAPD looking for Jussie Smollett, a half Jewish Black celebrity, half Black, or are they actually looking for the Freddie Grays of the world, the unknowns, the ones that don't make the newspaper? That's the discussion we need to have. Do Black aberrations traffic on general Black struggle? Is that what we see? I believe that's, if proven true, that's definitely what we saw today. Or I say this last few weeks. Number four, we're going to get a little bit into Terry Crews and Terry Crews making the accusation that Black males didn't come out and support him in Me Too. Me and Dr. Curry did a whole show in March of 2018 when nobody else was supporting Terry Crews, saying that Terry Crews should be remembered and actually included in the whole movement of Me Too. And somehow that got ignored. We're going to talk about it today. So, Dr. Curry, let's get right into it. Let's get right into that first question. We got people in the box on YouTube. This is Dash Radio Dash Talk X. Please use the super chat. Please support this channel. We on the chat on Tone Talks YouTube. We having the discussion. Dr. Curry, the author of Man Not, the book, powerful. What's your thoughts on Jussie Smollett?
Well, look, I think in two ways. On one hand, it's a complicated case, right? In the sense that if true, right? So all the facts aren't in, but if true, that his brother staged a hate crime, right? And made a false report. So on the one hand, I think Smollett is taking advantage of the racial climate, that we find today, and very much taking advantage of kind of this intersectional language, where he understands himself as a victim, But this is the other thing that I find extremely interesting is people's response to it. So, and I think back a few weeks ago when they were saying that they locked up Chris Brown for allegedly raping a woman at a party, right? And that was an accusation. It came out to be false. But, Eve was like on The View or something saying that, time's up, Me Too, men can't treat women this way, X, Y, and Z. And that brother was actually innocent, right, of that specific accusation. But here you have Jussie, and, all things that have been leaked seem to indicate, and again, like I said, is alleged, so he's innocent until he's proven guilty, seem to indicate that he had some part in staging this attack. So the black public's reaction to this has been, and this is the irony to me, the black public's reaction has been like, oh, well, look at all these white people who have made, false accusations and they're not locked up, right? So the question now is, well, look, we have a system of racism. We have a system that terrorizes black people. We have a system where white women specifically get to call black people and they don't get locked up. So we shouldn't, try to see Smollett locked up. And I find that response interesting, specifically because men, when they're falsely accused of rape, or when there's allegations of rape or sexual assault, people are saying, well, look, you're trying to take advantage of patriarchy, right? That just because white men don't get convicted for doing these things doesn't mean that black men should get let off the hook. So what I find to be interesting is the way that in our minds, even as black people, there's this kind of collective ignorance, or rather I should say this kind of benevolent attitude towards black men that are not straight black men and who are not constructed as predators, violent, dangerous, or rapists. So I think in terms of whether or not that's going to translate into an effect or consequence for other hate crimes or racial hate crimes, who knows? But I think that what it does do is that it puts a stain, so to speak, on the kind of celebrity aspect of black suffering. And I think that's a very important distinction. As when poor black men are killed, the things that we're getting from Madame Noir, from the social media, is that these men, even though they were victims of violence, ultimately were dangerous. So when Alton Sterling got killed, there were questions of whether or not, he was involved with abuse of women or girls. These are the kinds of questions we get. With Smoley, there's a complete vindication of him in the sense that, well, if he lied, it's just a lie. We all lie, right? This is what Ayanna said. Well, look, he did what we all do. We lie, right? But that's interesting to me because given what we know about the other aspects of black life, it's very well true. It's very well possible that, given the early age of sexual debut, most black people have had sex before the age of consent. It's also true that we've all jaywalked, right? Like there's all kinds of things we've all done.
You had Mark Lamont Hill actually make a whole claim about connecting this to Ryan Lochte. I didn't understand that at all. I didn't understand that statement. The thing is, what I'm tired of, honestly, is this whole reality of like black celebrity trafficking in and around black struggle all across this country and black real communities. And so what we end up seeing is that instead of actually getting the stories of Alton Sterling and Eric Garner, we get Jussie Smollett, who gets to traffic between the boundaries of being Jewish and being black. And I don't think we want to get honest about what that look affords him. You work in academia, Dr. Curry. If I pull up your picture, you're in the vein of a Eric Garner or Walter Scott. And so what happens is Jussie Smollett traffics on how people are intimidated by your size or your look when they're not intimidated by him. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely.
What do you think about that?
No, I think that's correct. But again, this is what I mean about the kind of vindicationism we've seen amongst black people and within society, right? The idea is that, look, Jussie Smollett is not going to be depicted as a rapist, right? He's just not, right? He's a gay black man, part Jewish, educated, well-spoken, a celebrity. That's not the way that society is going to depict him. Even me, given the fact that I have a PhD, especially when I was attacked by the alt-right, those are exactly the stereotypes that people put on me, despite the fact that I'm one of the most educated people in the United States. So the difference is how do the black bourgeoisie, and this is what's important, how do the black bourgeoisie and the black middle class, who separate themselves from the struggles of black people, get to commodify those experiences, the deaths of poor black folk in liberal whites political space.
Come on.
And I think that's the same thing that we're seeing with Kamala Harris. I think that's the same thing that we're arguably seeing to a certain degree with AOC and the way that she's being attacked and depicted on various issues of campaign finance and racial progress. This is the way that America works. Nobody wants to deal with the nigger, so to speak, but you can use the nigger, the death of niggers, to advance a political career if you're talking to the right white people.
Well, I mean, Kamala Harris ties into this very interestingly. Her and Cory Booker ran out there talking about lynching. Soon as this, this came out maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago.
Absolutely.
And I didn't say anything because it was real sketchy to me from the beginning. I just wanted more facts.
Yeah, you gotta get the facts.
I wanted more facts. What came out as a result is a bunch of articles written on sites all across, like BET, I believe, wrote one, and a couple of other sites about how black men aren't standing up for Jussie Smollett. Do they owe us an apology now? Because nobody wants to apologize when they wrong.
Well, no, but look, I mean, like I said briefly before, look, this is the same. They owe Chris Brown an apology. They owe straight black men an apology for the time that the sister walked into the refrigerator and they claimed that it was a gang rape and she was murdered. Look, this is what black popular culture media does. It blames straight black men, especially poor, uneducated black men, for the ills of society. And that's no different than what white liberals and progressives have been doing for the last 4 or 5 decades post-integration. The question I think we have to ask ourselves is, why is this vein of argument coming out of the subculture of violence theories that were popular in the late 60s and 70s now being picked up by people who consider themselves to be intersectional feminists and black progressives or black liberals? Yes, they owe black people, black men especially, but black people generally, an apology. Yes, the arguments that you see from the blue checks on Twitter are grossly inaccurate and being misrepresented given the actual data and facts of the world. But we know that apology is not coming because those people profit off of this. Smollett is just taking advantage of what is the discourse and the representation of his specific identity in this period of time. When you have blogs and you have social media saying that, look, if you're black, gay, trans, etc., that it's the multiplicity of these identities that make you more likely to die, despite the evidence, right? Because the evidence overwhelmingly shows that poor black men are the ones that get killed. Not even just black men, but poor black men that are having greater interactions with the police in urban environments are the ones being killed by cops. Facts don't matter. So what we end up doing is we're saying, oh, you're black. So now race functions as this marker that every black person, despite education, class status, celebrity status, suffers from. But all that argument, that idea, that meaning of race is built on the back of poor black men, right? They're not out here shooting black women who are college educated and stars in the streets. That's largely why you had white women and black women able to march in the Pink Hat rally and nobody got arrested. Black men walk across the street and they get shot. Like, there's a very clear difference in the way that black people, specifically black males, are treated in this society versus every other group.
Let's get more specific, Dr. Curry. When we say that, we got to be honest. I kind of used this example before. I believe there's 6 or 7 qualities that exaggerate your black experience in America. One is gender, and I'm going to say maleness in terms of exaggerating how the police approach you. How
absolutely. All the data suggests.
One is gender. Yeah. One is size. One is having a former felony. Another one's being in the South. All these things, aggregate together. So, like, what happens when you're Jussie Smollett? You look like what Jussie Smollett looks like, pulling up a picture. You don't have any felonies. You're a celebrity. Are the police as likely to treat you like Eric Garner? Let's just talk about it.
No. I mean, given what we know, that's what I'm saying. Like, on the one hand, if they identify you as black, right, there is the idea that there's an implicit bias in formidability. But in the context of someone recognizing you and you going to the police, filing the report, that's not a direct police engagement. So in his specific context, he's not likely to be treated like a black man that you meet in an urban environment where the police engage with guns drawn or the construction of a threat, right? If he was out on the street in that same situation, who knows? But given that he's a celebrity and that he's living in one of the most expensive areas of Chicago, it's unlikely that he would be put in that kind of situation or environment. And that's what I mean. I think that this is an issue where we have to be very honest about the specifics and nuance of the type of black people that are being killed by cops. Because what I find concerning today about the way that we've approached this in social media, on Twitter, et cetera, is that there's a generalization black male death becomes a generalizable fact of racism, despite the fact that not all black people are dying at the same rates or at the same risk. So what happens in these political moments is that this is why Harrison Booker appropriated the myth of lynching. Overwhelmingly, the people who were lynched the most were black men, right? Especially in the South. Overwhelmingly, they were. So when you say this is a lynching, right, you're saying that this person is being lynched, and this was the idea that people are working with. I mean, you're implicating, you're importing a very specific kind of racialized and male experience. That's not, of course, to say that black women weren't lynched, right? But when you're getting the symbol of the mutilation, the cutting off of the genitalia, the political significance of this, it was a masculine act. It was an act to make sure that people knew that black men were not men and that they had no political power. So Smollett being taken up in that legacy is problematic, especially when you have the Eric Garners, the Alton Sterlings, et cetera, and the numbers of people, Laquan McDonald, the people who have been killed just wholeheartedly assassinated within areas and regions like Chicago.
This is Tone Talks -Radio Talk X. Please go to YouTube, Tone Talks, support the channel. We're having a discussion, talking Jussie Smollett, talking Terry Crews, talking black celebrity. You know, when I see this thing, I can't help but look at it in two parts. The initial incident by Jussie Smollett, but then we have the secondary part where he continues past this initial and creates this whole statement of being a Tupac of some sorts. And then also he states that in some way he doesn't know what's going on. If this is proven true, are these two different instances? Meaning the initial act of the hoax, and then the second part of the gamesmanship where you act like you don't know what's going on. What do you think, or is it just one thing, Dr. Curry?
Well, I think it's two, right? I mean, there's a hoax. Look, the hoax he pulled, if it's a hoax, right? I mean, because part of me wants to believe that maybe there's some truth, but it just seems that the evidence, if that's been released, if true, just doesn't, like, the evidence, right? Despite my personal belief, the evidence seems to be indicating something different, right? Yeah. So I think that that's a personal failure, right? Because he's taking advantage of the deaths of a group of people, both black men and black women, to mobilize a story for personal gain, whatever that gain may be. The second part, though, the gamesmanship or the propagandist aspect of it, is extremely dangerous, because now it suggests to the public as well as to me that, well, look, even though you've been caught, so to speak, now you're willing to go into this world where it's saying that despite the facts, my experience of what I'm saying is true. And we see this a lot, in sexual assault cases against black men generally, right? Where the person's like, oh, well, no, it's not him, but I felt that it was him, or I dreamed that it was him, right? We have cases like this all through the criminal justice system. So I think the propagandist aspect of it is what's extremely dangerous, because we know that black people are oppressed by anti-blackness. We know that homophobia and sexism and misogyny and misandry exist in our society. The question is, do you get to deploy that even when you're not a victim of it? So what is it that your story and narrative is trying to capture in the minds of black people that you think is going to ride this through all the way? And that's what becomes interesting to me, because when you look at Mark Lamont Hill's response, we look at all the people's responses on Twitter, they're saying even if that's false, we believe that there's victims, but nobody's denying that they're victims. Right? Like this, it's this kind of twisted logic, because we don't apply this logic to any other group of black people, especially black men. Nobody says, well, just because R. Kelly's wrong here, that doesn't stop like hundreds of black men from being falsely convicted or falsely accused. Nobody says that because this one black guy, robbed a store here, that doesn't mean that hundreds of black guys, like we don't give innocence to poor, straight urban black men. And here what I see is an overcompensation of the need and the mental gymnastics to breed innocence to Jussie.
Is it because we like what Jussie Smollett looked like versus Freddie Gray?
I don't know if it's purely looks. I think we like what he represents.
What does he represent?
Right, like I think for many black liberals he represents the perfect intersectional subject. Right, it's just like Beyonce. Right, Beyonce is not extremely intelligent, but you got people like Michael Eric Dyson saying that, she's better than Michael Jackson and more politically active than practically all the black athletes of the 60s, 70s, and 80s combined, because he likes her performance. Like, you
ain't going to have a beehive going after me, Dr. Curry. That Dr. Curry's Twitter is Dr. No, I'm just messing with you. You know the beehive.
Look, I stand by what I say. I think this is what happens when there's an identity politic. I think the intersectional black liberal looks at politics in such a way as which body can you support. And I think Jussie Smollett is the kind of body, right, as a gay celebrity black man that has liberal politics that they can support. right? And notice, like when he's talking about this, he's like, "Oh, I fought back. I'm the gay Tupac." But why are you invoking Tupac, right? Like what kind of symbolism are you trying to carry forth in the black community? The same thing when you get the performance of Beyonce and Lemonade and Get in Line and stuff like that. Like what is the imagery? You dress in the Black Panther Party outfits as a woman, female militant, but for the most part, intersectional feminists and intersectional black liberals demonize the Black Panther Party, right? So what is it about these conflicts and symbols that captures the black liberal imagination so much? And I think it's that he becomes the perfect victim, because in all of these conversations, the issue is victimology. Who's the most oppressed?
What's interesting about your point is there's the perfect victim and then there's the data. From the data, whether we look at police violence, whether we look at incarceration, black males, particularly heterosexual black males, place off the charts in terms of just raw numbers. More black men incarcerated than all women on the planet. About 700,000.
Yeah, there's no denying the data.
700,000 black
downward mobility. Yeah.
700,000 black women incarcerated 700,000 women incarcerated out of 4 billion women, and maybe 700,000 black men incarcerated out of 20 million black males. So this is where we're at. We're at this place where nobody wants to really deal with black males. Don't really have as much access to patriarchy as you like to believe or make them out to have. How you're actually misstating their position in society. And Jussie Smollett plays in the boundaries of that. Do you agree?
But I agree with you. But this is what I'm saying. Like, we have to get past the idea that these people don't know that. I mean, like, just think about it. Just think about the ways that these cases and these articulations of black male power and patriarchy have been articulated on Twitter or social media. Nobody can say that black men have power. They don't have riches. They don't have private property. The only thing they can say is that they're violent. So that's not patriarchy. Patriarchy is not violent men. Patriarchy is militarism, private property, ideology, etc. So that's what I'm saying. Like, we need to start having a real conversation about the various ills and erroneous thinking amongst black people. Because what I find is when we're talking about race, we want to say, oh, it's all white society, and we don't implicate the black middle class, the black liberals, the black progressives, the intersectional thinkers, in the ways that their ideas of politics and reformism are generating concepts of demonization and really racist characters of black people. Because what we see happening here is an idea that says, no, gay black men are not violent, they're not liars, they're victims, right? So even if this one case suggests that, Smollett lied, that doesn't, marry to the group.
Is this just a lie? Is this just a lie, though? If we start looking at
that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's just a lie. I think this is a performance and a spectacle that was meant to mobilize certain kind of political powers for some end. And I don't know what that end is. But if this was just an individual lie, then you say, okay, well, look, you got caught, let it go. But the idea that you had Harris, Booker, that you've had the mobilization of different kinds of major TV networks around this seems to be something else, right? This seems to be something else entirely. But again, this is what I'm saying, is that there's a certain political efficacy for it to being, Smollett and not, Alton Sterling, right? There's something about the way people sympathize and believe in the humanity of Smollett in this case that can't be mobilized with the Eric Garners, the Sterlings, the McDonald's, etc. And that's what I'm saying. There's something about that we don't want to talk about. And we've seen this in play through multiple presidential elections.
Let me get in here. Dash Radio, Dash Talk X. I'm going to open the lines up, 323-230-4610. I want to have the discussion. I want to figure out what's going on here. Let's see how everybody feels about Jussie Smollett. It's such a charged topic in many ways, and I think that black people across this country are dealing with how that actually makes them feel. I don't know if everybody has a similar or the same reaction. I just think that in many ways, what's happening is black people don't know how to deal with Jussie Smollett. So they just try to frame it around things that they understand. Again, 323-230-4610. And I'm having this discussion. We're talking. Call in. Let's see what you think about this thing. But Dr. Curry, but as we move forward, I asked the question of how does Smollett fit into a greater narrative of racial violence where Alton Sterling, Eric Garner, Walter Scott, these people actually died at the hands of real violence. If found proven true, I don't believe an apology is enough. I'm not saying that he should be, excommunicated, but I don't believe an apology is enough. I believe this cuts to the core of a redefinition of like who is a victim and how we're going to characterize that. But I'll let you speak to what you think.
Well, look, I think the first thing is we have to acknowledge that if this is a hoax, that Smollett's action does not take away from the very real problem of hate crimes amongst black people and the targeting of homosexuals in our society. So I think that's the first thing. But the other part about that is that I don't understand that specific argument where people say that what's at stake in supporting his victim narrative is recognizing hate crimes generally. Because, and this is what I mean, hate crimes in this country are overwhelmingly perpetrated by whites against other racial minorities. So it's not like if you look at straight black men, they're not victims of hate crimes, or you look at straight black women, they're not victims of hate crimes. So I guess what I always struggle with is I don't understand how the identity politics translates into the facts and data that we get, say, from the FBI or something like that. So on the one hand, there is a very real threat in this country, especially under Trump, that endangers the lives and the prosperity and the quality of life of all black people in the nation. That's just a fact. That's just a brute, calculated account of the data. That being said, with Smollett's actions, now we have another question. Well, in a world where you see Black death as being put on, Front Street, marketed, broadcast every night, what investment do you have as an individual in trying to gain currency from that? And let me be very specific about this. If you see black people dying and being shot on television, what is it that makes you think, well, that's not going to be me, so let me tell this story as if it was me, versus the very real realities that poor black men and women experience in this country where they're actually afraid of being shot and killed? And that's the conversation I think we need to have. How is it that certain black people who know they're not going to be victims of police brutality are being shot in the street just for walking? How do those groups of people who are celebrities and have certain economic and political status take advantage of the people who actually do fear that they're going to be shot and killed in the street or in their own neighborhood? Because what I see happening here, and I got to go back to Kamala Harris's rhetoric about being tough on crime and now bringing out the hot sauce and stuff, right? Like, what is it about the American descended, right, the African descended people in America who were the descendants of slaves, right, who experienced the anti-blackness and violence and death that this country was built on? How is it that their narratives, their story, and their political marginalization become the basis that through which other people enhance their political careers? Again, right? That's a quandary for me.
Again, Dash Radio, Dash Talk X. If you're having any issue with the sound, please go to Dash Radio, Dash Talk X. What I'm seeing going on here is that black folks aren't able to really digest that our struggles, our real realities have to be critiqued and continuously analyzed and put in context. When I look at Alton Sterling, when I look at Eric Garner, I believe they were forgotten too soon. And I believe Jussie Smollett is getting a long run of being in the news, far too long. And, why is the media actually paying him so much attention?
Well, I mean, but it's a distraction, right? The one black guy that possibly, creates a hoax, right? I mean, think about the power that you get by this example. So now the Chicago Police Department looks like they're the victim. Now white conservatives get to pretend that look at how these black liberals and intersectional feminists and queer theorists and queer activists lie to try to set up a system, right? Like the implications, the symbolism of this go far beyond the lie. And this is what I mean when I say that, look, on the one hand, you get people like the Harrises, the Bookers, etc., they get to make a political moment of it. But on the other hand, it also props up the system because now the system gets to claim legitimacy. We found that one black person lied about violence, so maybe all black people are lying about violence. And that fits within the narrative of the alt-right, which suggests that America is generally an egalitarian society, and the largest threat to the undoing of white civilization is black deviance and crime and black men who are raped. Right? So, like I said, the problem I have is that Jussie Smollett used one aspect of that. his ability to mobilize the narrative to the benefit of other bourgeois celebrity black people for more fame, attention, etc. But the flip side of that is, how does a system reify itself? If you're buying into the experience of anti-black violence and death, then you know that the system aims to kill black people. But then you come back and use that experience as if the system doesn't intend to aim to kill black people, and that somehow the system is not going to use your story and your lie, if it is indeed a lie, to prop itself back up and legitimize what it's doing to black people who are poor throughout Chicago. I mean, that's just a terrible miscalculation, because it not only puts other victims in danger, but also threatens the very ability now of black people, especially other black men, to be able to fight against the police when they're shot or are treated or profiled in deplorable ways. And this is what I mean when I say that there's a fundamental disconnect between the black bourgeois and black celebrity culture and then the everyday black person, especially poor urban black men.
Yeah, man, Dr. Curry. So, like, what I'm starting to see is that we don't all want to be honest about this thing. We don't want to be honest about what it means that Smollett decided to take a blanket of black struggle across generations, really, and then cover himself with it, because it hurts too much, possibly.
Absolutely.
You know, I see it in the
Absolutely.
chat. I see people talking about it, and so I look even more so at this thing, and I ask the questions that I am, because I think that we can't really dig to the bottom until we honestly start to ask about this disrespect. Again, 323-230-4610. I know everybody is split between watching this video and the Marianne Williamson interview I did earlier. But call in, give your opinion on Jussie Smollett. You can talk about everything from the actual incident, the aftermath, what people on social media are saying, and just give your opinion. I'd love to hear it. Dr. Curry would love to hear it. But if you guys don't call, we'll still have a great discussion. So, you know, does this, you know, I seen somebody in the chat asking, does this set back claims of racial violence? And for me, I believe it possibly can, because this is the kind of thing that white people have been waiting for quite some time. I mean, it was just you look at the Good Morning America interview and what happened with the Good Morning America interview with I forgot the woman's name, but she had to apologize, and all of a sudden people who actually are beaten in the streets will have to prove that they were beaten in the streets before people believe they were beaten in the streets. Let's take this first caller of the night. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from? You got to turn your background down.
I'm sorry. I'm calling from California, San Francisco Bay Area.
Give us your take on what everything is.
I really believe this is a setup. Them Nigerians look just like them dudes that was in the Starbucks video once upon a time ago. I think they done flipped the script on bruh.
Yeah, you can keep going. When you say flip the script, can you explain what you mean?
I'm saying that I'm really thinking this is a government setup using the Nigerians. I don't know why they exactly targeting Jussie, but I don't believe he did that. I'm gonna say that.
Okay, that's cool. So you don't believe that he did that? Well, like, I guess we got to start being honest about the facts of everything and just see. We don't know. None of us know. But I mean, it feels like we want him not to have done this so bad that we're gonna ignore. There's actually a memo that came. They have the actual document from the actual, I believe, police report or something of the sort that came out, and it lays out what happened. And at least from the police's statement of what happened, and it's really questionable. And you know, I just believe that we start running into a whole question about, are we ready to get honest about why that's the case? That what does it take for us to actually see Jussie Smollett for Jussie Smollett? But I have a bunch of callers calling in now. I thank you so much for calling.
Okay, I guess one more thing I want to say.
Okay.
Okay, so when I watched the press conference, it seemed like they put a lot of emphasis on, you know, the surveillance activity around this whole matter, and that's what makes me suspect, because Chicago has always been a beta test for, you know, these type of targeting black people for, you know, various crimes and stuff like that. That's why I'm suspect, too.
All right. Thank you so much for calling.
Thank you.
Antonio, hello. This is Dash Radio. Please tell me who's calling. What's your name?
Hey, this is T from Los Angeles. How are you?
Hey, what's up? What's your take on Jussie Smollett and everything that's going on?
I'm doing well. Well, first off, I think it's a very important topic, but as Dr. Curry so eloquently put together, I think the real issues lie in sort of talking about the kind of represent symbolically and how it's going to apply to us as people who are viewed like in the diaspora in America. So like what it says about what people feel about black men and about different kinds of black men and their sexuality, right? Like we often don't talk about the directionality of the race and sex politics in America, right? And how it is different, and there's different resistance being a male versus being a woman versus being a gay black man or gay black woman. So I just appreciate you guys talking about the ideas more, kind of those higher level things, because I think we can get lost in the weeds of like who exactly Jussie is and the TMZ drama of it. So I appreciate what you guys do. Big supporter. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much for calling. Thank you.
Yeah.
Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Yeah, man. Let me take one more caller. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Hello? Yeah, so Dr. Curry, what do you think about what those callers had to say? Those three.
Well, look, I mean, I don't know if he's been set up. Like I said, part of me hopes that he didn't just pull this whole hoax and that there's something about it. But at the same time, we got to look at the facts, right? And here's I guess here's what I'm trying to point to is even when Bill Cosby or even what's going on with R. Kelly, right? Like there's this push that hey, look at the facts. And in the case of Cosby, the facts were numerous women's testimony. In this case, we're being told to look at the facts, and it's like phone records, surveillance video, cellular towers, etc. So I guess again, and I'm not coming down on any side of this, but I guess what my question is for the black community is when does a fact become a fact versus when do we just decide a priori that certain people are innocent and certain people are guilty? Because what I see happening with this Smollett case is that, and I think this is indicated by Hill's comment on Twitter, is that there's this need to somehow say, well, look, if I don't believe Jussie, I'm not throwing all gay black men under the bus. Or if I don't believe something that if I didn't believe Rihanna, I'm not saying that domestic abuse is okay. And I guess that's fascinating to me because I've never seen the flip side of that where somebody says, well, just because I don't believe Cosby, I don't believe that black men are being falsely accused. So there seems to be something in our own culture, our own perception that lets us believe that poor black men, straight black men in power seem to have some kind of malicious or deviant nature. And I think that this becomes a problem because what Jussie's case is really illustrating is that we have internalized racial biases within our own community. And again, there's the one side that says, look, if he's a victim, nobody in their right mind would say that if he lied, that means that all gay black men are lying. And I've seen tons of tweets and social media posts suggesting that that's actually what's at stake. That if black people, like that article that came out saying that, straight black men's silence on Jussie Smollett is dangerous. And I'm always asking myself, like, what does this actually mean? Like hundreds of black people, actually thousands of black men specifically in this country get killed every year that we don't even know their name. We don't even know they died. They get killed either in their own neighborhoods or by cops, and we never say their name. So somehow somebody not dying or not mentioning somebody's name of who got killed or murdered is not dangerous when the implication of that is death. But not talking about a black male celebrity is doing what? Like I don't understand how we're rationalizing the causal relationship between silence and outrage and then death and erasure in our society.
Dr. Curry, let me jump in here. I want to take another caller, give them a chance to jump in with you.
Absolutely.
Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Kimberly, and I'm calling from West Africa.
Oh, thank you so much for calling. What's your thoughts on Jussie Smollett?
Well, my thoughts are this. I'm also originally from Chicago. And when I first heard about it, I was really surprised because I didn't expect something like that to happen in Chicago. We have our crime issues, but generally we don't have, white supremacists roaming the streets of Chicago attacking people. So it didn't really fit. But then after I found out, what really happened, then I looked sort of into Jussie his family, and I was really surprised in his family background, and that basically he comes from a family of people who are in the industry. His sister Journey is a very famous African American actress, and she plays, a Southern girl.
Caller, your phone is clicking a bit, so I'm just wondering if it's something that's windy in the background.
No, it's just because I'm calling from a developing country.
Okay, okay, you can
Yeah,
finish.
it's just because of that.
Okay.
But anyway, so I'm gonna get to the point. But anyway, so I just looked into his family history and looked into who his sister is. She's a very famous African American actress. That's what she portrays, even though she's really biracial. His father is Jewish and the mother is African American. So it just made me think more deeply about him and his mindset, considering the family he came from. And it just makes me wonder if he was sort of raised with the mindset of, using, your blackness, your appearance of blackness in America to get certain benefits.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I have to definitely say that's a question. I brought that up in regard to not just Smollett, but also Tracy Silverstein, who everybody actually knows as Tracy Ellis Ross, changing her name to Tracy Ellis Ross to, be part of the entertainment. Why not just be Tracy Silverstein? Did you feel black people would not accept you, or these are the questions that the need to traffic on this normalcy of blackness to advance yourself is a big question that's involved with this whole thing. Caller, is there any last thing you want to say to the audience?
I guess the last thing I would like to say is also, this also will let us know that, his family is not as successful financially as you would think they are, being such a very strong Hollywood family, because only someone who does not have money, who's desperate, would do a desperate act like that. He does not have money. His family does not have money. And so this would just let us know that a lot of these black people in Hollywood really don't have what it appears that they have.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for calling. So, Dr. Curry, I want to talk about one last thing. We want to talk about Terry Crews for a second. I want to give you a chance to just give us your, we supported Terry Crews early. I don't know what went on with him and other people on YouTube and outside of YouTube. I believe comedians and everybody, he had issues with them not supporting him, and me too. We supported him in March of 2018 when BET actually said no celebrities were supporting him. Do you feel offended that Terry Crews actually basically didn't acknowledge you as an academician, me as having a show, us not supporting him, as though black men, straight black men, were somehow ignoring, sexual violence against other straight black men?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I'm offended. But I think it's kind of typical. If we're going to be honest, is that, it's like I said on Twitter, like my issue with his ignorance or ignoring of our special on him is more about truth, right? So I mean, he's a celebrity, he's a star. He doesn't really have to care what the full professors thinking or writing about. But if you're going to make a kind of statement that says that no black men are supporting you, I mean, you had, again, even with the chats, when people were giving feedback on the video, they were really trying to rethink what it meant for black men to be victims of sexual assault in society. So the problem I had with Mr. Cruz, and it's the same thing I said to him on Twitter, is that, look, you take this as if you're somehow a prophet, right? Where if you actually work with black men who are victims of sexual assault, it's a much more humbling activity, because black men are not able to be taught that they're not taught in this society that they're victims of sexual violation. So even when black boys are being raped at the early ages of 9 to 14, they don't see themselves as victims because no one in the society or throughout their lives told them that, hey, you're a victim of rape. So for Mr. Cruz then to come back and blame all those victims, right, because black men have higher rates of reporting being made to penetrate than even some women or some groups of women report of rape in this country in 12 months, for him to disregard all those victims and all their stories because he posts something and they don't respond the way he wants, to me is disingenuous and dangerous. So I think that what Mr. Cruz has done is he's being paid by special interest groups and women's rights groups and feminist groups to come out and slander black men, because he doesn't ever really talk about white men. And again, this is what I find the strangest aspect of the way that the Twitter culture works is that overwhelmingly the majority of people who are abusing women in this country, surely by the function of population, are white men. The second largest groups of domestic violence perpetrators in this country, again because of population, are white women. The people who have the highest rates of 12-month victimization amongst black people are actually black men, right? So if you have all these facts that say, look, Mr. Cruz, what you're saying is in fact not only untrue, but impossible, just given the demographic realities of the country, but you're making money off of trying to get people to believe that black men are all toxic masculinity.
And also, he was attacked by a white man at that party.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like that's what I'm saying. Like, so your target now becomes like he reaches back to the experience of his father. And again, I don't make light of that because we know that men who observe trauma, or even actually children who observe trauma, actually become more likely to be victims or perpetrators of it. That's just a fact. But the thing is that you get assaulted by a white man. You have white society, white corporations, and the white justice system not take up your case. And then you go back not to the egregious acts that you've experienced that get you into the forefront of sexual assault in the conversation in the first place. You go back to your father's abuse of your mother. And that's fine on a personal issue, but then why is that the talking point? Why is not the talking point the homoeroticism and the rape and the power this white man felt he had over you in front of your wife in a public space and the law not taking up this claim and corporations threatening your job, which is why you're not in the expendables for, right? Why is none of this resonating? But the one thing that's not resonating that you're getting paid to talk about, and this is what I mean by his lack of self-awareness, is not your victimhood, but your experience of another violent black man in your family, in your lifetime. That's the concerning thing. And as much, like he's mentioned me in some of these tweets, but he's never responded to me. So I don't know what that's about, but I think that that's problematic because what you're doing is you're saying, oh, look at me. I'm this big black guy who's an NFL player and I was a victim, but the real victim, right? The real victims of toxic masculinity are women, are black women, because the real perpetrators of toxic masculinity are black men.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you this question as we start to close out. Is there a through line between Terry Crews and Jussie Smollett in the sense of everybody, Jussie Smollett targets black men in the sense of I'm going to cover myself with their real struggles, if proven true. And then you see Terry Crews, instead of actually approaching the power, at first he was attacking white men. He went to Congress but when he found out that those weren't the easy people to target, he changed his target to black males. And do you see a through line of I'm just gonna go after the low hanging fruit of black men because they can't protect themselves?
Look, this is evident. This is the same thing I study, same thing I write about. Black men in America are the scapegoats for all the ills of society, right? There is a market to be traded upon in demonizing black men. The criminal justice system does it. The media does it. Our institutions of higher education do it. But look, he's fitting within that paradigm. I mean, think about it. His the stuff that he's posting now is about, him going to women's shelters. Terry Crews is not a clinician. He's not a social worker. So what is he going to, like, what, I mean, think about it. As a celebrity who was sexually assaulted by a white man, what are you telling women's shelters about their ability to heal unless you're saying men are bad? Or like men are violent or men are patriot? Like there's no clinical significance to that. But this is how he's being picked and depicted now. So I don't,
this is the danger of black celebrity as a whole. This is where I see a through line. How many of them have been basically told by agents or whatever to do whatever it takes to actually be relevant? This is the hot thing for the moment. Black Lives Matter or Me Too. Just jump in on that, and then as a result, you think they're really interested in that topic, when they really are just trying to maybe clean up their image for whatever reason. Say, as an example, say a Terry Crews, you took a major hit because of going after this. Well, this is what you're going to do instead. And then,
absolutely.
How many of them are Jussie Smollett? Your career is turning this way. Well, do this, and maybe it'll get a little energy. And no matter of the effect on the greater black community, no matter the effect on black families. And as a result, if that's not their concern, then should it be our concern to even support them no matter what they put out?
No, absolutely. It should be, like I said, we have to wait till all the facts come in with Smollett. But I think that if this does turn out to be, if he in fact did do this, then there needs to be a serious reckoning with the community. And again, I think this is where the black community, I said this through my whole academic career, This is where the black community, the black public, has to start holding celebrities and black intellectuals culpable and accountable for the types of stereotypes they put out about them to the world. But I want to say something really quickly about Terry Crews. I saw that interview he did with Mike Tyson, right? And I thought it was strange, not because he said something about like, you know, the people who criticized him or the people who killed Malcolm X or something ridiculous like that. But I was like, here you are, actually talking with a black man who was a victim of sexual violence as a child, who got convicted of rape, and who's admitted that he struggles with mental health issues as well as forms of anxiety around those two traumatic events in his life. And you didn't have a single parallel in your experience about that kind of black male reality. And this is why, you know, because I'm listening to the interview and I'm just like, so at what point is Terry Crews actually going to make this about the experience of sexual violence that black men are subjected and victimized to? And it's from these kinds of things that I see that, well, that's not Terry Crews' interest at all. Like, he used that to become popular in the public, but he doesn't actually care about black men who are victims of rape or care. Like, Mike Tyson was homeless and he was raped by another man. He doesn't even care about this kind of issue of homoeroticism or same-sex violence that black men experience. So that's not his pulpit. Like, my question is, if you're gonna come out with toxic masculinity, then talk about this kind of child abuse and sexual abuse that you see other black male celebrities suffer as well, right? But that's not what's going on. He has conversations about R. Kelly, and talk about toxic masculinity, but didn't even mention the fact that Kelly was abused by his sister or caretaker. I think her name was Teresa Kelly, right, for 10 years. So what is it about his analysis? Who's paying him not to make these most obvious connections when he's out there making it for every other group but the group he belongs to? So this is ultimately a question about how black celebrities are being paid off to be the faces and tokens for white liberal political agenda. And that's just the bottom line. I don't see a lot of different answers on that issue right now, because people are mobilizing blackness and the suffering of poor black people to get their point across. And if that means that Terry Crews is going to do it by ignoring the data of black men being abused by caretakers and other men in the society, or is going to be Smollett who's going to take advantage of the fact that, black gay men, poor black men are being shot and harassed by white supremacists and alt-right people, then so be it. But I think what the black public has to recognize is notice that in both of those cases, your experiences and ultimately your lives are disposable to these celebrities. And we have to start having a real criticism.
Man,
like, contrary to what people have been saying.
Dr. Curry, you on fire. You know, we coming to the end. I wanted to actually also give you a chance. I didn't mean to cut you off at all, but I want to get, I know you can go. And you know, Jussie Smollett, the evidence is going to come out. Everybody's going to get to see that unfold, and you know, you hope that the young brother didn't do this, but it's more and more looking like he possibly did. And if he did do this, I believe it's an offense to the entire community, and I believe it's a danger to all of us being able to bring real claims of racial violence going forward. As to Terry Crews, brother, you know, we did support you, and that was horrible what happened to you, but this is no answer what you're doing now. Dr. Curry, you want to tell them a little bit about Man Not the Book, and then we'll close out.
Absolutely. So The Man Not is a text that was published in 2017, actually trying to understand the death and dying and oppression of black men in this society. It recently won the American Book Award for its analysis and its in-depth look at the lives of black men. And one of the major contributions it makes is understanding how black men in the United States are actual victims of rape, sexual child abuse, and intimate partner violence. So a lot of these questions that we have, like the reason that I think we stumble so much when looking at the issue of Terry Crews or trying to understand the victimization of black men versus perpetration, et cetera, is because we don't have a language to describe the realities of black men, their lived experience. So The Man Not is an attempt to actually do that.
Man, thank you so much for coming on. Where can they get Man Not?
They can get it on Amazon. They could look at templepress.edu. It's for sale there. Pretty much any Google. The book's been doing so well, pretty much every outlet sell it. So just Google it and it'll pop up.
And this is Tone Talks. You can go to tonetalks.org to subscribe and donate. We're going to be doing the ADOS conference, you know, October 4th and 5th in Louisville, Kentucky. You can go to ADOS101.com to actually buy tickets. They're just $15 until April 29th, at which point they'll go up slightly. Please come out, support the American Descendants of Slavery Conference. We're going to be having this discussion. I had presidential candidate Marianne Williamson on earlier today. That video is on my channel discussing her why she came out about reparations. It was a good discussion. And now I had Dr. Tommy Curry. Please share this video. It was a great discussion on Jussie Smollett and everything that's going on around him. Look forward to talking to you next week. Thank you for tuning in to Tone Talks.